Now, with an update on the debate in Washington, D.C., is Senator Mark Begich.
Thank you very much. Thanks for all of you joining tonight. I know the weather in some of the parts of Alaska is very beautiful today. That's what I'm hearing from friends and other folks calling me and letting me know what's going on back in Alaska. And I want to tell you it's hot and humid here, and it's very busy in the halls of Congress. We are busy waiting right now for the House to take some action in regards to their short-term proposal. In the meantime, the Senate at many different levels are working in a bipartisan way with others on both sides of the aisle, Democrat and Republican, trying to figure out what's the right solution here so we can raise the debt limit and then move on and figure out how to do a long-term deficit reduction plan. Let me make sure people understand that the debt is not really an option to raise the limit. This is about bills past due. This isn't about new spending. And let me repeat that. This is not about new spending. This is about money that people before my time spent a lot around here, and it's both Democrats and Republicans, current president, past presidents, they're all to blame for all this, and we're all part of this solution now. And we have to figure it out together. And it does mean some tough decisions, decisions that some of the issues we're looking at that I'm not very excited about, but we have to deal with this. We have to reduce the cost of government. We have to get us on a deficit plan that actually moves the deficit down and helps to start paying off this enormous debt. And so today and tomorrow and for the next few days, we'll be engaged in a pretty intense process around here trying to figure out what's the best approach. As mentioned, the Boehner program that's being presented and maybe voted on tonight or early tomorrow is a short-term fix. And I said earlier today on the Senate floor that I am not interested in a short-term fix because that keeps the economy in turmoil. It creates a problem for the business community who's not sure where we're going long-term, so their investments in building an economy is not going to be there. And it really puts you, individuals, really at unease. I hear it every day. When I was back in Alaska for 48 hours last weekend, everywhere I went, people weren't sure what to do for their personal finances, what it meant for the country, for their kids they're trying to move on to maybe college, or a senior who's making sure that they can keep ends neat while they wait to see what happens long term. It is a significant issue. The plan that is being proposed on the Senate, the Reid plan, has a long-term solution. And long-term in Washington isn't like you and I would think about it. It's 16 to 18 months. But it puts it out there and moves the debt limit up and gets us focused then on doing a real deficit plan that is critical for this country and critical for our state. So I prefer that longer term. And if there are some ideas that are being kicked around right now by Republicans on the other side, I'm anxious to work with them. I'm talking to them every day, every hour, because I'll work with anybody if they can come up with a solution that works for the majority of all of us here in the U.S. Senate. Let me end there and let's get on with questions. And I think if I pronounce it wrong, I apologize. Is it Tawny from Bethel? And why don't you go ahead?
Actually, you called Tawny, but this is Jim from Bethel. I got to tell you, you're doing a terrific job. As a Republican from Bethel, you have my support, and you've served us well. My question is, what really is the effects if we don't get something done? Nobody can explain that, the media, nobody else. But and I know you're hopeful like I am, something's going to be done, but let's say it's not. What do you see as the real world effect?
You bet, Jim. I'll give you that. Plus, I'll tell you, especially from Bethel, we have another problem. We can't get our federal aviation bill passed, and because of that, what's happening is Bethel, who has an important airport project, they're creating better landing lights at the airport. That project is now a stop work order. The Senate did their business. They got it done. They passed the bill. It's stuck over in the House. They're not getting their business done over there. Net result is Bethel has a project that has a stop work order on it because they can't get it moving because the House on the other side, it's just one individual over there. That's the most amazing thing, who's holding up life safety issues for FAA. Now, to your specific question, so we're clear on this, and that is, what will it do to you individually? Here's what happens. Let's assume for a moment that we're not successful and the debt limit does not get raised. Immediately, you'll see impacts to the stock market. Now, those who have retirement programs, 401ks, or in Alaska, the permanent fund, we're going to see a dramatic negative impact. It will affect everyone's retirements, equities, permanent fund, all of it. If you're in a local government, in the sense of you're in a city that sells bonds for roads or water or sewer or school projects, the interest rates they pay will go up. What does that mean? That means if you pay property taxes to pay those off, that will go up. If you have a credit card, those rates are going to go up. If you think you're going to be buying an auto or a new home, the odds are the credit will be tighter, and the odds are it will be more difficult, and the interest rates will be more expensive. If you're a seasonal business, which we have lots in Alaska, think about it. Tourism, fisheries, some of those have borrowed money for the short term in order to supply their inventory if you're a tourism business, or in the fishing industry, maybe to get prepared for the season. Those are on what they call floating rates. Those rates will go up and cost individuals more money. We're not sure. The programs, for example, out in the Bethel region where you're from, the area out there, the medical facilities receive Medicare, Medicaid reimbursements for some of the facilities. Those will be slowed down, in some cases maybe stopped. So that will be a problem. The list goes on, and it's a significant impact to every single person in our state and in our country.
We'd like to thank everyone for joining our telephone town hall call this evening. If you have a question for Senator Mark Begich, you can press star three on your phone to get in line to ask a question. Again, if you have a question about the federal budget deficit or the looming debt ceiling deadline, you can press star three to be connected with Senator Begich. This call is also being simulcast on Ustream. You can find Senator Begich's Ustream account at ustream.tv/Senator Mark Begich. You can also find this simulcast on Facebook at facebook.com/Begich. And you can also find Senator Begich live tweeting this event at twitter.com/Senator Begich. Our next call this evening will come from Thomas in Anchorage. Thomas, you're live with Senator Begich.
Thank you. Good evening, Senator Begich. I've been home in Anchorage all day most of the day watching the debate in the House, and halfway through they said that the 53 senators had already signed an agreement that they would not support whatever the outcome of the House was, and I don't have a strong opinion either way, but that seems like a pretty dysfunctional approach to reject the plan before it's even planned. And I'm looking on TV; they're delaying the final vote now, so probably because it's headed for nowhere. But my specific question is, if you've already made a decision to not support whatever the House proposes, what is the next step as far as you're concerned?
You bet, Thomas. Thank you. And actually, that plan has been out there for several days, so it's not a new plan, and they have been told over and over again, because it is short term. That's the biggest problem with their proposal, is it's only 3 or 4 months. So we'll be back in this turmoil, and the economy will be, all over the place because there's no certainty. And they have heard from us over and over again, and we made it very clear yesterday, work on a compromise that gets it long term. Plus, their reductions are only $900 billion. The proposal that we have put forward was scored by Congressional Budget Office, meaning what they actually will think it's worth, is $2.2 trillion. In other words, we're suggesting more reductions, but over a longer period of time to raise the debt limit so we can get some certainty in our economy. That's the difference. So that's not, they make it sound like it's all new today. It hasn't been new. This is for several days they've had this proposal. And I made it very clear that I didn't support, because these short-termers are killers for the economy. And no business would do it this way. No individual would do it this way. So what's the plan? We would have hoped they would have been working in a bipartisan way on the House side, which they're not doing right now. So we're busy, and we have been busy for the last several days, working with our counterparts, Republicans, working with them and coming up with ideas that they can accept. As you know, there was a bipartisan proposal called the Gang of Six, which is made up of 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats that brought forward a proposal. So we're working on a bipartisan way over here to try to find a solution. And I think that's what we're going to have to do. And that's why we're kind of waiting, as we're speaking tonight at almost 9:30 Washington, D.C. time. Our session is still open. We're trying to figure out if we should just move a piece of legislation forward so we can show them what we want to do on our end. Because if we can do a bipartisan piece on the Senate end, then I would hope that the House would embrace it in a bipartisan approach. But we have told them that this is a big issue. And it should be Democrats and Republicans sitting down together, solving this problem together. And that's not what's going on over there. They're just hustling votes right now, and that's deal making. That's not creating a solution, and we're not interested in that. And they know that. So Thomas, that's the plan. So if theirs fails, they may not even get it out of their own house, but let's assume it goes over to the Senate and it fails. We're ready to start moving forward another piece of legislation that we think we can garner some support around, because it's more reductions and makes this a more longer term proposal. It creates certainty for our business community, for you and individuals, and then we get on with the big issues of how to do this in a longer term way than just the next 18 months.
We'd like to thank everyone for joining the town hall this evening. If you have a question for Senator Begich about the debt ceiling or the budget deficit negotiations, you can press *3 on your phone to ask a question. Again, press *3 at any time to ask a question. Our next call this evening will be coming from Marlene in Wrangell. Marlene, you're live with Senator Begich.
Thank you, Senator Begich, for having this meeting. And I'm very concerned. I was a single mother. I raised 2 children. I'm very concerned about the fact that our government doesn't seem to have a priority on where to cut spending. I would think that stopping foreign aid, that reducing the defense budget, and also putting all legislators on half pay before you ever dare penalize our military. I'm just amazed at our homeless people, our hungry people in this country, and we're sending billions of dollars overseas to countries who just think that we're horrible anyway. So that's just my opinion. I would rather that the money stayed at home, that we used it to reduce our deficit and not blackmail the people into thinking that, well, we have to reduce Social Security, we have to penalize the military or anything like that. That, to me, doesn't make any sense. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Marlene, and thank you for asking those questions. Let me say a couple quick things. I didn't say earlier that the Senate majority of the Budget Committee put together a budget that was $4 trillion in reductions and of the deficit. It was mixed between $2 trillion in reductions of expenditures, $2 trillion in getting rid of tax loopholes and schemes and scams that people have been taking advantage of, and taking away the tax incentive for million and billionaires. We thought that was a fair approach. Also, it protected benefits for Social Security and Medicare. The current proposal that we have that we're working on here, which is shorter than the one I just mentioned, $2.2 trillion in reductions over the next 16, 18 months, protects benefits of Medicare and Social Security, because I believe people have paid into those. Also, they've earned them, and they deserve the benefits that they rightfully owned. Now, to your question about how to balance this, that's one of the big differences also between the House version and our version. Our version is treating some fairness here, that everyone has to take a bite of the apple, and when that means military, and I sit on the Armed Services Committee, and I'm very strong on supporting the military, don't get me wrong there, but do I believe there is waste and expenditures that could be reduced there? Absolutely. I believe there could be. Matter of fact, in the last defense authorization bill that just passed out of the committee, I proposed the largest single reduction in the defense authorization bill, which was bipartisan and unanimously supported by Democrats and Republicans. My co-sponsor on it was Senator John McCain with many other Republicans. And that was almost $800 million. So I agree, it has to be fairly spread over the budget. Everyone's a little different. We need to make sure that's done correctly. Another proposal we put in the defense authorization bill, right now, the U.S. government pays about 75% of NATO. And my view is the countries in Europe need to also pay some more. 75% burden on us is not fair in these economic times. So I put together with Senator Sessions, a Republican from Alabama, an amendment which got unanimously accepted by the committee. to, again, force that issue for all the reasons you just stated, but also it's a fairness issue. Why are we carrying 75% of the burden of NATO when there are many countries that are part of NATO that need to put up their fair share? So I hear you, and it's a balanced approach. We're going to be out of Iraq by the end of August, saving us a lot of money. Matter of fact, in the proposal we've put forward, that we hope to be vote on the next day here, almost $1 trillion of the $2.2 trillion is expenses related to the wars that we will no longer be engaged in over time. So let's cut the costs. So thank you for that question, Marlene. And just like you who raised, if I can just say one thing, just like you who raised 2 children as a single parent, as you know, I come from a family of 6 of us, and my mother had to raise us, so I clearly understand what struggles and issues you had to deal with.
We'd like to thank everyone for joining the call. If you have a question for Senator Begich, you can press *3 on your phone to ask that question. This telephone town hall is being simulcast on Facebook. You can find Senator Begich's Facebook page at facebook.com/Begich, and it's also being simulcast on Ustream.tv. You can find Senator Begich's Ustream account at ustream.tv/Senator Mark Begich. Our next call this evening will come from Alice in Anchorage. Alice, you're live with Senator Begich.
Yes, Senator Begich, first I'd like to thank you for not taking the raises that were authorized in the past 2 years when those of us on Social Security did not get cost of living adjustments. And I'd like to ask, how can the government possibly repay what they have, quote, borrowed from Social Security every year that they've had a surplus if they're going to close down? And how are they able to borrow it in the first place? Public Law 101-508, Title 8, Section 13301A says that Social Security funds are not to be used for the general treasury.
Yeah.
The government has no right to touch them, and Social Security would be solvent if they left them alone. They'd be solvent for many, many years. What's going to happen to us?
Right. Well, thank you, Allison. Thank you. I should have reminded myself when Marlene asked, because you're right, I haven't taken a pay raise since I've been here. I actually authored one of the amendments last year to make sure that no senator could either, because I think that's important. The other thing you reminded me as you were talking there, I want to make it very, very clear here. The question the last caller Marlene had was about military pay too. In this time of crisis, I will tell you, there is no better or stronger supporter to make sure, no matter what happens, that the military, our active combat troops of men and women, our servicemen and women, our Guard, are taken care of. So you can rest assured that we want to make sure that they are paid, period. Social Security benefits. First off, Marlene, that was a great cite on the law. You've done your homework, no question about it, but here's how they did it. They didn't use the funds, technically, that went into Social Security. Social Security loaned the funds. I know that sounds goofy, but that's what they did. Now, your real question is, how do we make sure that money's paid back? How do we make sure that Social Security is solvent in the future? It is solvent now for a long period of time, till 2037. And after 2037 is estimated based on the amount of money coming in and the money that's in the account, they can still pay about 75% of the benefits. There are a lot of alternatives that don't reduce benefits and tweak some of the things we can do that can add another 75 years or longer in its solvency. So we are working on some of that right now, but it is not part of the deficit. There are some who want to claim the deficit was caused by what Social Security is. Social Security is separate. It's a trust fund. The federal government borrowed money from it. It has to pay it back by law, and it will. There's no question in my mind. But we need to make sure it's on a separate track of solvency. It should have nothing to do with trying to take money from there, like some want to do, and put it into paying off the debt. Or some who want to, some of the plans that we've already seen come over from the House is to let the private sector manage Social Security. Now, let me tell you, if any of you lost anything in the last 2 years, if you had money in the stock market, that's the same group. They want to manage your Social Security. And there's one thing I know about Social Security, and that is every day that the words come up about Social Security and any issues, I get a little text from my mother who's on Social Security. It reminds me or asks me the question, there's no question in my mind, we need to protect it. We have some tweaks we need to do, but we cannot have it part of the deficit, and we need to continue to make it solvent. And I believe there's a way to do that.
Our next call this evening will come from Dane in Soldotna. Dane, you're live with Senator Begich.
Hi, Senator Begich. Thanks for having town hall meetings. Anyway, one kind of quick statement. Gentleman asked about what happens when we owe bills or checks don't go out August 1st. I have 3 clients that I work with that are small businesses that have been doing contract work on government contracts, and if they don't get paid in August, they may have to file bankruptcy. And imagine there's thousands of businesses across the United States are in the same situation. If they don't get paid in August, they'll be looking at filing bankruptcy. The other question is, as a financial analyst, I've never worked with a business that could get out of its problem by just cutting expenses. They also have to increase revenues. And I haven't seen anything in terms of current plans by the Democrats to increase any revenues. So what is the plan for increasing revenues?
Thank you, Dane. And I would say if you have some time, we have some stuff on our website that talks about the Democratic majority budget that lays out not only cutting expenses, but also some revenue issues. And let me walk through those just very quickly. First off, I don't support continuing the tax breaks for millionaires and billionaires. That alone is worth $400 billion over the next 10 years. And it's only 315,000 people that are receiving that benefit. And I believe, I don't have millionaires and billionaires calling me and saying, hey, give me another tax break. I don't know what they need it for. Maybe their 7th home or 8th home or 3rd yacht or 2nd plane. But the reality is they don't need it. We can't afford it. And it's time to change it. So that's one. Second, these loopholes and these scams that people are taking advantage of, where they set up these phony corporations in the Cayman Islands in order to avoid paying their fair tax. We're not talking about increasing their taxes. We're just talking about being fair. And that alone, we estimate, I've sponsored a piece of legislation with Senator Levin. We estimate annually, it's $100 billion annually that could be part of the revenue stream and again, help pay off this national debt that we have. I think there are opportunities out here in the way we do the business. For example, we give tax benefits to people who set up companies overseas to the tune of well over $100 billion over the next 10 years. Honestly, I don't know how these laws got into place other than a lot of special interests lobbying the halls and walking the halls of Washington last decade and making their sweet deals. Well, that means you and I are paying for companies to ship jobs overseas, which makes no sense. Again, another opportunity to create some fairness in the tax code. I've actually put on my website, which I hope people take a look at. I know it's sometimes when you hear politicians talking, go to your website and read some more paper. You're falling asleep as soon as I say it. But let me just say this: it's a tax reform package. Why is that tax reform package important? It's a bipartisan approach. Again, I will work with anybody if they're focused on the issues I care about. If it's going to help Alaska, help Alaskans, change our country for the better, that's who I'll work with. And we have a bill, Senator Wyden, Senator Coates, myself, a bipartisan bill that's about tax reform. It lowers the corporate rate, but gets rid of all these schemes and scams and these loopholes. But it also gets the individual rates, instead of 6 rates, down to 3. And then guess what? You can do it on one page, one single page. We will not only save time and money, we will make it more efficient, and we will help figure out and I think improve our revenue stream. Now, one other thing we can do to improve our revenue stream, but you cannot do this alone. Everyone who says, well, we're just going to cut our way out of this, I don't care who's telling you that, they're not telling you the truth. You cannot cut your way out of this. You have to deal with cuts of cutting spending. You have to deal with revenues and creating a fairer and better system. But you also have to invest. And I know the minute I say this, oh, he wants to spend more money. Let me tell you where I want to put the money. I want to put it in roads, water, sewer, electrification, energy. These are the things that will drive your economy. And this is the job of the public sector. We put those investments in. The net result is you get private sector that sees the government doing what they're supposed to be doing, then the private sector starts investing their money. Why is that important? As they invest money, that creates jobs, which creates revenue, which helps also solve this problem with our economy. So it's 3-pronged: cut spending, deal with revenues, and then make sure you have investments going into the right areas of infrastructure, education, and energy. But thanks, Dane. That's kind of what my plan is. There's a lot of ideas I put on the website, and I encourage everyone to take the time if you want. It's hard, I know, with a sunny day or nice weather in Alaska, but maybe when you get bored, you get a little time, go on the website.
We'd like to thank everyone for joining the call again this evening. If you have a question for Senator Begich about the budget deficit or the looming debt ceiling deadline, you can press *3 on your phone, and a member of Senator Begich's staff will be on hand to assist you. Right now, if you are enjoying this call and would like to share it with your friends, you can tell people to go to facebook.com/Begich, where this town hall is being live streamed on Ustream. You can also access that simulcast at ustream.tv/channel/Senator Mark Begich. So if you'd like to share this call, you can go to facebook.com/Begich. Our next call this evening will be coming from Linda in Homer. Linda, you're live with Senator Mark Begich.
Hi, Senator Begich. Thank you so much for this opportunity to ask you a question and for having this town hall. As I've watched the coverage of all of this and from the outside looking in, I'm just stunned that I don't understand how all the budget decreases and all of that are even attached to the debt ceiling. Raising the debt ceiling. And I wonder why can't, everyone agrees that that needs to happen, so why can't that happen as a separate issue? And these other reductions and other issues that are so needed take a lot of attention and time, and why can't they be done at a separate time?
Linda, I would agree with you 100%. I mean, they have wrapped around the budget issues around the debt ceiling, which has not been done in the past. There's some great quotes from Ronald Reagan about the debt ceiling, how you have to raise it for the good of the country, but also for dealing with the economic climate that you may cause by not raising the debt limit. I would be for that 100%. Just deal with the debt and then get on with the budget. But I would say this about the budget, that we need to set very tight timetables to work on a plan that we pass. Because around this place, what I've learned, you don't set schedules or timelines, they just kick the can down the road. And I'll tell you, that's very dangerous on there. So I would agree with you. If you could do a clean debt ceiling, and clean meaning no attachments, you just vote it up, raise the debt limit, and then focus on a comprehensive budget proposal that we have to have in front of us at a certain time without any delays and no parliamentary procedure delays, I'd be all for it, Lyndon. I think it's a great idea.
Our next call this evening will be coming from Amy in Sterling. Amy, you're live with Senator Begich.
Hi, Senator Begich. My question is, well, first of all, let me give you some background. I am a single parent. I earn $2,000 a month. I own my home. I own my car. Everything is paid for outright because I budget and I stick to my budget. I did all of this as a single parent without a credit card. I cannot go to a bank and get a loan because I'm too responsible to give a loan to. So why can't our government do the same thing and live within their means? And if it need be, I'd be happy to come and sit on a panel with all of you senators and House of Representatives and go through the budget item by item and sit down and cut and do whatever I need to do to show you how I live within my means, to show the government how they should live within their means.
I'll tell you, you are exactly, I'm pausing here only because it's probably been the most frustrating thing. Coming here and realizing how they do the business is appalling. No household would do this. No business would do this. I mean, I've been in the small business world for many years. My wife's in the small business world, owns retail shops. It's appalling. And you wonder why it's so messed up back here, because the way they've been running the business for decades. And to be very frank with you, there's a lot of new people here that are trying to change the deck a little bit and enforcing some discipline. When I was mayor, you had to balance the budget. When I was in business, if you didn't balance your budget, you were out of business. It's not complicated. And if you were a household, and you're a great example of someone who did a great job, single parent, sticking to your budget, the more of that would make a huge difference back here. Part of the challenge around this place is, to be very frank with you, a lot of these folks here haven't run their own business or been in an executive position, as I was mayor and running my own businesses also. You have to make tough calls. Sometimes it's cutting your expenses. Sometimes it's raising the price of your product. Maybe it's a combination. Maybe it's you're getting out of the business. A lot of these guys around here, that's That's not what they're doing. And they're not connected to reality. And, I joke a lot of times about Washington, D.C. that, they say it's in the Beltway, and it's the freeway that goes around the capital infrastructure here. Well, the way I describe it is this beltway, this belt gets tighter and tighter around here, and you start losing oxygen. And when you start losing oxygen, you start doing crazy things, and that's what they've been doing for the last several years. And so I hear exactly what you're saying. That's why I think we got to deal with this debt limit issue and then hone in on a real fiscal plan, a balanced approach that also keeps us in a tight time frame to do it with some repercussions if we don't. So I agree 100%. It is the most frustrating thing. When I was mayor of Anchorage, I went out to the community all the time, just as you just asked to do here. I went out and challenged our budget commission, our individuals out in the community to show me where to cut, where we need to do things, and they did, and we took action on it. They don't do that here because they have a quirky way to do business, and I'll tell you, it's disastrous. It's a disaster as we're sitting here tonight.
We'd like to thank everyone for joining the call again this evening. If you'd like to watch the call while on it, you can go to facebook.com/Begich and find a live stream from ustream.tv. Our next question will be coming from Facebook. Kathleen on Facebook asks, Senator Begich, do you support the Reid plan, the Boehner plan, or something else?
I do not support the Boehner plan because it's too short term, creates an unstable situation in our economy, and it's only $900 billion in $900 billion in cuts, which is not enough. But most important, it creates an unstable setting in our economy. Businesses aren't for it. It's a bad decision. The Reid plan, I support, but I want to put a caveat. I support it because it protects Medicare, Social Security. It's a $2.2 trillion reduction over the next 10 years, a much more aggressive. It's longer term, which gives more certainty to the economy. But I would say this. We have some ideas that are coming from Republicans right now, and maybe end of the day that there's a process, that there's going to be something in front of us no matter what to have a longer term plan that is $4 trillion in reductions. I would not oppose having that added in. So that's where I stand on these that are moving down the path right now.
Our next question this evening will be coming from Wanda in Fairbanks. Wanda, you're live with Senator Begich.
Wanda?
My question is, how you want support from your constituents, but how can we agree either with Harry Reid's plan or Boehner's plan if we don't know the details? All we hear is one is a shorter period of time and one is a longer period of time. And my second comment is that I'm retired from the state of Alaska, and I did not pay into Social Security. The state of Alaska has their, you might say, a privatized Social Security, and federal government employees do not pay into Social Security either. So if those two groups have been very successful, how can you say or be totally against privatization of Social Security? Thank you.
Well, let me first say, no, federal employees, I know I do. I pay into Social Security, so I also pay into a retirement fund. I pay into both. And let me first back up. There are lots of publications and information that have the plans out there. National Journal, as an example, has a written document they put out today that talks about both the Boehner and the Reid plan. So you can go to the websites. Wall Street Journal had some stuff recently, but a lot of them have had the comparisons and there is stuff on, I know on many websites of every senator has elements of this, but the information is out there. But in regards to PERS and TERS, I don't know if you remember, I remember this as mayor. That fund was in significant bad situation. So bad that the state of Alaska had to have special appropriations in order to fix the fund. I remember this because as a mayor, the cost of our employees had gone up and was about to go up to 40-some% of their paycheck. We would have to contribute on top of that just to pay for the underfunding in those retirement plans. So they were not as stable as you are, and I know this because I'm a member of PERS. And so I'm telling you right now that there was a lot of effort to fix it. Matter of fact, the state legislature had a great debate. It is going to cost them hundreds of millions of dollars to fix this problem. And because the state system had problems, it trickled to all the local governments who were part of the system. And from the municipality of Anchorage, we were able to negotiate at the end of the day that the maximum amount of employee contribution and employer contribution was going to be, I think, at 22%. The rest would have to be covered by this lump sum that the state had to put in. So those funds were not, I mean, you may be retired and getting your check, but those funds were in serious problem. And that's why there's been a significant amount of rejiggering to those funds to make them successful. So I just want to make sure that's clear. But again, as a federal employee, I'm paying Social Security.
We'd like to thank everyone for joining the call this evening. If you have a question for Senator Begich, you can press *3 at any moment, and a member of his staff will help you. If you'd like to watch video alongside this call, you can go to facebook.com/Begich, where there is a stream from ustream.tv right now. We're going to take a quick break from the deficit and have a question from Bob and Homer on a very popular topic this evening.
Bob?
Bob, are you there?
Yes,
Hello, I can hear you, or did hear you.
I think we've lost Bob, but Richard in Anchorage has the same question. Richard?
Hi, good evening, Senator Begich. I appreciate your energy. I have a question. I'm a furloughed FAA engineer and wondered if the reauthorization bill is on the calendar of either the House or the Senate currently. And the second part of my question is, I understand that the two sticking points on the Trust Fund Reauthorization Act as it stands are some perceived anti-union language and a cut in subsidies to rural airports within 90 miles of a hub airport. Is this still the case?
That is still the case. Nothing's on the calendar right now. You have one House member, the chairman of the committee on the House, that's holding up this bill. In April, the Senate passed this out and actually selected the members, Republican and Democrats, that would sit on what they call the conference committee to resolve the issues. The House has never appointed their conferees, so they don't even have people ready to help work out the compromise. And the only person who's holding up is the person who's the chair of the committee over there. And he thinks, to be very frank with you, he thinks he's the one that can make the decision on what's important for life safety for this country when it comes to aviation. And so there is nothing calendared. It is about all those issues you mentioned, labor issues. It's about essential air service, just some personal views that this one member has, and he's holding up the bill that has cost 79 jobs in Alaska. Yours sounds like one of them. Projects such as the Anchorage International Airport has a project for their tower. Bethel has a project. All these are not happening now. Those are private sector construction jobs that are not going to happen. So it's stalled out right now. And again, the Senate has done their work. We passed the bill, large margin, bipartisan, and it's stalled out in the House. The House, to be very frank with you, seems like they're not doing anything other than arguing with themselves and playing hardball politics instead of solving problems. We just passed out the military construction and veterans bill. Again, huge support on this end, bipartisan in the Senate. It's sitting over in the House, just waiting. So I'm sorry you're furloughed, but we're trying to solve the problem.
Our next question this evening will come from Janet in Chugiak. Janet, you're live with Senator Begich.
Hello, Senator Mark.
Yes.
Monday night, the president asked people who were concerned about the debt ceiling issues to make calls, and thousands and thousands of us across the country did that. It's now Thursday evening, and all of this is still high-centered. What's the best thing one citizen like myself can do to help encourage someone? And it looks now like it may need to be the Senate to move some legislation forward if nothing's going to be forthcoming from the House to resolve this.
Well, thank you very much, Jen. I'd say we're high center tipped over the cliff. Let me put that into perspective, and I hate to say it that way, but I think your perception is right that the Senate has the ability, or should have the ability at this point, to move something forward. I think exactly doing what you're doing, making calls, letting people know. I will tell you, at least in the Senate, the delegation, Alaska delegation, Lisa and I have grave concerns over where we're headed right now. And we have had great conversations about trying to solve this problem. She's working with several Republicans. I'm working with several Democrats. We're working in a way to try to see if there's a pathway here that can bring a bipartisan approach. So I would just encourage people, you got to continue. And yes, it crashed our computer systems, and that's fine, because that shows that the American people, that Alaskans care about this. So I would just encourage you to continue to make those calls, put that pressure on. And you don't have to get into the Reid plan or the Boehner plan. Just tell people you call what you care about. Do you want a short-term plan or a long-term plan? Do you want more cuts or less cuts? Do you want to protect Medicare or not? Do you want to deal with Social Security or not? Do you want to see defense cut or not? Do you want to see foreign aid cut or not? Be specific in that arena. But the core overarching issue, I believe, is, do you want a short term or a long term? You can see where I'm going. I'm a big supporter of a long term because it is important to create certainty and take the fear out of people of uncertainty of what's going on. We need to do that if we want to grow our economy and have the private sector move forward and have people feel better about their country and about their state. So I'd encourage you to continue to make those calls, but you don't have to focus on Reid, Boehner, Republican, Democrat. What do you want most? And is it short term or long term?
We'd like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. If you have a question for Senator Begich, you can press *3 on your phone. After this call, Senator Begich will be on Fox News. If you are watching TV at your home, you can tune into Fox News and see Senator Begich interviewed by Greta Van Susteren about the ongoing budget deficit compromise discussions and the upcoming debt ceiling deadline. Our next call this evening will come from James in Kodiak. James, you're live with Senator Begich.
Hello, my name is Jake Jacobson. Can you hear me all right?
Perfect.
All right. Senator, to my way of thinking, the short-term solution is an immediate need. This horrible collection of problems is not going to be solved quickly. It's going to take decades in the long run. But in the meantime, I'm concerned that this $2.4 billion that the president wants that will carry him through the next election is going to do nothing but put us further in debt. I'm concerned that everyone's talking about saving money over 10 years. This is reminiscent of the old communist 5- and 10-year plans. And I think in a way that's kicking the can down the road as well. I'm also concerned on entitlements, that they include Social Security and Medicare. These are subscription contracts, essentially. It's not the same with Medicaid or foreign aid or aid to aliens and all the rest. So I think they have to be very discriminating in how they cut. But cutting Social Security should be the last issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I agree with you on Social Security and Medicare. That's why the proposals that I've supported so far exempt those from this great debate that we're in. I believe Medicare we can solve in a lot of ways. That's an efficiency and a delivery system issue. Social Security, that's a sustainability issue, and there's minor tweaks you can do, but those should not be part of this discussion. That's why I've supported several plans that have kept those out. The 10-year, the reason a lot of people don't realize this, and I learned this when I got here, 10 years is because the Congressional Budget Office is this little room somewhere in the halls of Congress that make all these plans. You have to, by law, do these over 10 years. I agree with you. How you project out 10 years from now is very difficult because the economy, can you imagine 5 years ago, could we have projected the recession that we experienced here? No. So these 10-year projections are not very accurate. So it's better, in my view, and let me make sure we're on the same page here. When I say long-term in the world of Congress is 16 months. That's all it is. In yours and my world, it'd be many years, but in Congress, it's 16 months. Short term is only 3 or 4 months. We cannot do it 3 or 4 months because all we'll be doing is back into this mess. But if we can go 16 months or so, then we can hone in on a real plan of action that's aggressive and fair. And so you're absolutely right. That's the way to approach it. But we got to protect Medicare and Social Security, which I'm continuing to try to do back here.
Our next call this evening will come from Kevin in Wasilla. Kevin, you're live with Senator Begich.
How you doing, Senator?
Hello.
My question. Hello.
Yes, I'm here.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Is recently, basically Roger Clemens was acquitted. There was a lot of time wasted by Congress, on Roger Clemens that could have been spent on, taking care of this budget crisis. And on top of that, we continually hear partisan, bipartisan. When is Congress, and this isn't directed at you personally, going to become a team and start working together for Americans instead of against Americans?
No, I appreciate that. First, let me say about Roger Clements. While that was going on, I will tell you where I was. I was in the budget committee working on a plan that we brought forward on $4 trillion of reductions, a balanced approach, tax reform, several things, protecting Medicare, Social Security, doing a variety of things. So some members were, dealing with Roger Clements, which wasn't high on my list, to be very frank with you. But the budget is what I've been working on for months as a member of the budget committee. But your point is a really interesting one. When I came here, I came from, as many know, as mayor of Anchorage. I worked with Democrats and Republicans, and many times my assembly was predominantly Republican. But our job was to keep the city moving, build an economy, and make sure we do the fair thing and make sure the taxpayer money was spent properly. We did it as a bipartisan, a team to help build our city when I was mayor of Anchorage and do the right thing. I think in a lot of ways, if you look at in a very small way, Senator Murkowski and myself on many of the issues that are important to Alaska, we're working together. Many things we sponsor together, we work together, because she's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, that's irrelevant. We're Alaskans first. That's what we focus on Alaskan issues. And even on the national issues, we voted together on several items. And most recently, she voted against the Ryan bill because it would have impacted Medicare in such a wrong way. So did I. There are moments here that I grasp at when I see people anxious to work together, but there's not enough of it because we spend so much time throwing grenades at each other because we're trying to win the next election. If we just would focus on doing the right thing, at the end of the day, maybe people may agree with you, maybe not, but if you do the right thing, they'll respect that. If you have an open process, they'll respect that. Maybe you'll win your election, maybe you won't, but you have to do the right thing. And I think there's too many people focused on the next election and not focused on what the right thing is. And there's times I'll admit that, I get a little swayed in that direction. I got to keep kicking myself back. And the way I do that is I'm always headed back home. And, if I'm at Home Depot or I'm sitting over there at the convenience store, at the holiday store, or buying groceries at the grocery store, whatever it might be, people remind me very quickly, don't forget where you come from. And I think there's a lot of people here, been here too long, and forgot where they came from and are stuck in this beltway and are not back connected with their people. And so I agree with you. I don't know when that time's going to come. Maybe this crisis we're in will force this, because I can tell you there's a lot of good conversations quietly now going on between Democrats and Republicans in the Senate that recognize we got to do the right thing here.
We'd like to thank everyone for joining the call again this evening. At the end of the call, Senator Begich will be on Fox News doing an interview with Greta Van Susteren on the budget deficit and the looming debt ceiling deadline. After this call, you can find Senator Begich on Facebook at facebook.com/Begich. You can follow him on Twitter at twitter.com/Begich. And his website is begich.senate.gov. Our next question this evening will come from Leonard in Fairbanks. Leonard, you're live with Senator Begich.
Wow, Begich. I can remember when you was running, you called me several times, and your staff called me wanting my vote. And my biggest concern was what's going to happen when the Republicans want this or Democrats want this. Who are you? Which side are you going to be on? You said you're going to be on the people's side. Now we got a Democratic president. And I'm not real pleased with him, and a lot of people aren't. And why are you sticking with the Democrats so solid that I'm kind of frustrated here. I apologize for that. I'm not doing a real good job on my question.
No, you're doing great.
Frustrated at the way this thing's been handled.
Yeah, let me say, Leonard, I've had more calls than I probably would have estimated with the president on my frustration with him on many issues, oil and gas. I can go through the shopping list, but let's put that aside for a second, because I will vote where I think it's right. And I have more than once not only sponsored legislation, voted with, worked with multiple Republicans here. And I can tell you in the defense authorization bill that we put together, most of my allies on issues I brought forward with were Republicans. And on the floor, Senator Coburn and I have brought forward a piece of legislation, actually 2 different times, on reducing costs within the federal government. I've worked with other legislators. I just introduced one with Senator Hoeven, who's a Republican, on trying to put money into infrastructure, but doing it in a fiscally responsible way. What happens is you will see in the national kind of play in the media, Democrats versus Republicans. I would just challenge you to take a look at my voting and what I'm doing and where I'm going. I can tell you Democrats don't agree with me on my oil and gas positions. Democrats don't agree with me on my gun issues in the sense of supporting the Second Amendment. Democrats don't agree with me on some of my fiscal issues. I can go through the shopping list because I hear from them very quickly, as you can imagine. But I'm about representing what I think is the right thing. Sometimes that will be with Democrats. Sometimes it will be with Republicans. I can tell you when the TARP program came forward and I felt that at one point that would be paid back, I wanted to make sure all that money goes right back to the deficit. It was 41 Republicans and me. That was it when I first started on that issue. But I felt strongly about it. I had the Democratic leadership call me and complain to me that I needed to reconsider my position. And I said, I will. And I went out and got more Democrats to support me on that issue. End of the day, we made sure that any dollar coming back from the TARP program went to pay the deficit. And it was amazing. All that money's almost been paid back. It's gone to the deficit. And it was 41 Republicans and me. So, I can't help where people, what news reports and what national news there is, but I have my differences with the president more than you can imagine, and I have my differences with the leadership, and they hear from me very clearly. I've made speeches on the floor where afterwards they come up to me and say, what are you doing? I said, I'm representing my state, period, and that's how it goes. So I hear you, Leonard, and I still want to continue to earn your vote, and I want you to hold me accountable. I think you asked the question just right, and that's what we like. I want honesty from you. So let me just say to all of you, my time has expired here. Matter of fact, I got a note here that the House may vote on the Boehner proposal within the hour. We'll see. I'm going to be on Fox News here in a couple minutes, having a conversation with them about this issue. Those that joined us, thank you very much for being part of this very difficult issue. I'd ask you, if you want to get more information, please go online, join up on our newsletter, get the information about what we're doing, and send us your emails. Agree or disagree with me. That's the only way I'm going to know what Alaskans are thinking when you speak up and tell me. Thank you all for joining me on, I know, a great day in Alaska. It's 100 degrees here with 90% humidity. I will tell you, I'd rather be back home than here. But thank you all very much. Appreciate it. I look forward to another Teletown Hall meeting soon.